Let's do a little exercise here. We're going to try and add an appropriate ending to each of these nonsense words. All right. And this is just going to solidify to you, I hope, that we have these rules in our mind for how words are made. So, laud, it's not a real word, but if you're going to make it plural, you would put what at the end? An S. You'd say lauds. What about the word gack? What if the word gack was in past tense? You gacked something? Yesterday, I gacked that. Same again, lotch. What would be lotches plural? Or lotch plural would be lotches. Nop in past tense would be nopped. Treating these kind of like past tense verbs. Film or phlegm or nug. So just this idea that even if it's a nonsense word, there can still be rules applied to it. Which is kind of crazy to think about, and we don't have to get in depth into all of the whys of that, but just that you would understand that every language has that kind of rule system that we're taught from a young age, and you can apply it to even nonsense words. Or you could put nonsense words into a sentence that still sounded like a normal sentence, like the ebb and flow of a sentence, and it could be all nonsense words. And again, some things to consider in that, other than what I've already mentioned, is how does the plural of laud differ from the plural of lotch? If you were to actually spell it, one would have an S and one would have an ES. Is there some kind of rule that can help us decide how to add a plural ending? And what does this tell us about the rules of English morphology? So kind of those questions I had already answered is just saying that we definitely have a rule system that it's kind of just there. You're just not aware of it. You're not thinking about using it. You just do it naturally. And that's where it gets hard anytime you're learning a language, is because you have to learn each one of those rules separately. So moving on to syntax. So again, morphology is just thinking smaller in words. Syntax is the rule of grammar, which is the synonym for syntax would be grammar. They mean the same thing. Syntax is the study of the rules that govern how words are put together to make phrases and sentences. So there are phrase structure rules, what can be a phrase, and there are transformational rules. So we're not going to get into this, but there's kind of a surface level of structure and then a deeper structure. And a transformational rule is able to convert a deep structure sentence to something else. Now, those are the two main theories that we subscribe to in linguistics and English linguistics, but there are some other theories out there, and the only reason any of this really matters, because I don't want to go too deep when I'm discussing these things. I try and stick to the why. Why would you need to know this? Just know that according to the theories that are out there, that the rules that underlie all languages can be described, so not just English. They believe that all languages have grammar rules, essentially. All right. Another example here is this poem called Jabberwocky. And I had just mentioned that you can put even nonsense words together into like the sentence form, and somehow you derive some meaning from it, even though the words, there is no vocabulary to draw meaning from. You can derive meaning just from the grammar. And so this poem is an example of that. I'm going to read it. "'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird and shun the frumerous Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the manxome foe he sought. So rested he by the Tumtum tree, and stood awhile and thought. And, as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock, with eyes of flame, came whiffling through the tugly wood, and burbled as it came. So this is a good example because there's some nonsense words definitely mixed in with real world words. So even though these words are nonsense, just the rules of grammar helps me understand how to read it and helps your brain kind of assume what words should be where. Like a first word should be an article, and that second word should be a verb, so some kind of action. And the third word should be some kind of person, place, or thing, a noun. And so, you know, I don't know what came to your mind as you read that, or I was reading it out loud. Um, but somehow it still made sense. I imagine this Jabberwock to be some kind of creature, and he's in some kind of forest in my mind is and it you could think something totally different, but the point is, how did I even come up with that? Like, why do I think that this Jabberwock is a creature that lives in a forest? It's kind of amazing. And I the main point here is, no matter if you like the study of grammar or not, and personally, I remember I hated learning the rules of language. I thought it was so pointless, but um, it gives us meaning. It holds meaning too. And so, not only just so somebody can present well in their writing or in their oral speech, it does matter to people that you are well spoken to be successful. However, grammar actually holds meaning. And so, if a child has a grammar deficit, that could really impact their understanding of language and their ability to produce it. All right. Moving on. Semantics. Now, semantics is a synonym for vocabulary. So those are one and the same. The study of how meaning is attached to the words and sentences of languages. So mostly we talk about single words or vocabulary in that sense, but it is also just saying how a whole sentence can have a meaning. There's some more theories here. There are fundamental features and selection restrictions, but I want to do a little question and answer here again as we think about what are some semantic selection restrictions. So a semantic selection restriction would be when we can't put certain words together and have it make sense. So this example is married bachelor. The reason you can't put them together is because you can't be both married and a bachelor, right? Of course, there's going to be someone thinking, oh, there's an exception. What about a man who was married and his wife just died? He's technically all of a sudden a married bachelor. Okay. I get that, but just hang with me here. In general, to the married man, to my husband, he better not be able to be described as a married bachelor. They can't go together because their words mean two different things. So there are these semantic rules. There are these selection restrictions that you automatically apply without having to think about that rule. And that's just an example. Pragmatic. So this is really the last element of language to look at overall. Pragmatics is synonymous with social skills, social language. And that is a really, really important piece for successful life outcomes for anyone, whether they're neurotypical or have a disability. The definition of pragmatics is how we use language to communicate. So, the use of language for communication socially, and the use of language to express one's intentions and to get things done, basically, in the world. It is very difficult to have successful, healthy relationships without some understanding of social rules. without some ability to understand, what's appropriate in what setting and whom you can talk to about what and when and all those things. It'd be very hard to keep a job or keep a good friendship or a healthy marriage without just knowing some of those rules. And this is an area many, many kids struggle with. And so, although obviously literacy, academics, all of that is extremely important, another really key foundational part that sometimes gets left out with kids with disabilities is this social aspect. And no matter how smart they are, if they don't have that social language, they're going to really struggle. And so it's just a very, very important segment of language I'm particularly passionate about teaching because I see how it impacts everyone. I have another video here, and he's going to be talking to you about social language, about pragmatics. So this will be in your playlist, and then I'll come back to you.